The planet Leora was unlike any world Elira had ever imagined. Its skies shimmered with soft green and gold hues, and its forests were alive with creatures whose forms seemed almost magical. Elira, a young alien girl of her colony, moved quietly through the towering trees, careful not to disturb the gentle whispers of nature around her. She had grown up hearing stories of humans, tall, strange beings who sometimes visited distant planets. Her elders warned her to stay away from them, to fear their power and unpredictability. Yet despite her training, a part of her was endlessly curious. Today, curiosity had pulled her closer to the edge of the valley than she had ever dared before. A sound had reached her keen ears, unlike any she had ever known. It was a low hum, accompanied by the occasional crackle of strange energy. Elira's heart beat faster, both from fear and excitement. She crouched behind a thick silver-leaf tree and peered down the slope. There, half buried under twisted metal, was a human. His suit was battered, and sparks flickered from a broken device at his side. Yet there was something in the way he moved that caught Elira's attention. Even in distress, his motions were careful, precise, and full of a kind of calm determination that seemed foreign to her people. Elira's instincts told her to run, to return to the safety of her colony. But her eyes could not leave him. She watched as the human knelt beside a small injured creature, a local forest animal, and gently lifted it, inspecting its wounds. Elira had never seen such a display of kindness. Humans were supposed to be dangerous, unpredictable, even selfish. Yet here was one, risking himself to help a tiny being without hesitation. The human looked up suddenly, scanning the trees around him. Elira froze. His eyes were a deep shade of brown, warm and alert, filled with intelligence and care. For a moment he seemed to look directly at her. Though she remained hidden, she felt a shiver run through her, a mix of fear and something she could not name. She moved back silently, heart pounding. Her elders' voices echoed in her mind, warning her about humans, warning her that curiosity could be deadly. But Elira could not shake the image of the human's gentle hands and patient movements. She stayed there until the creature he had saved scampered off, its wounds tended carefully. Over the next few days, Elira found herself returning to the same spot. She observed the human from a distance, learning his patterns. He moved through the forest with careful purpose, repairing his damaged equipment, collecting samples, and helping any injured creatures he found. Elira noticed his fascination with her world, the way he examined plants, the way he paused to listen to the sounds of the forest. There was respect in his actions, a respect Elira had never seen from visitors before. Yet fear remained. Elira remembered the stories. Humans were strong, sometimes reckless, and their intentions could never be fully understood. The thought that she might have to interact with him, even indirectly, made her tremble. She wondered what it would mean to be seen by a human, to be close enough for them to notice her. The day she could no longer resist curiosity arrived unexpectedly. A sudden tremor shook the forest as a small rockslide cascaded down the slope where the human had been walking. Elira's instinct screamed at her to run, but something inside her urged her forward. She darted through the trees faster than she thought possible, and reached the scene just in time to see a large rock falling toward the human. Without thinking, she leapt, using her agility to push him out of the way. The rock crashed to the ground with a deafening sound, shaking the earth beneath them. Elira landed hard, her limbs aching from the sudden exertion. The human turned, startled, and for a long moment neither spoke. Elira's chest heaved as she tried to steady her breathing. She looked at him, expecting anger or confusion. Instead, he studied her with something she did not expect: gratitude. His voice was calm, steady, though laced with surprise. "Are you okay?" he asked, his accent soft and unfamiliar. Elira's own voice caught in her throat. She had never spoken to a human before. Words felt inadequate, strange, and dangerous. She nodded quickly, unable to form a sentence. The human crouched slightly, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Thank you," he said simply. "I don't know how to repay you." Elira's fear spiked. The sound of her own voice, the closeness of the human, the attention, it was overwhelming. She took a step back instinctively, her tail curling around her feet for comfort. Her people had always warned her. Humans could be unpredictable, and getting too close could be dangerous. But as she looked into his eyes, she noticed something else. No threat, no danger, just honesty. The human's gaze held patience, a willingness to understand. And slowly, a flicker of curiosity began to replace her fear. I am Illyra, she said finally, her voice trembling. I live here. The human smiled faintly. I'm Jaren, my ship crashed near your colony. His tone was humble, unassuming, but there was a spark of pride in the way he held himself. I didn't mean to intrude, I just needed help. Illyra nodded, still unsure of what to do. Her instincts urged caution, but a part of her, the part that had watched him for days, wanted to trust him. She realized then that humans were more than the stories had told her. They were capable of kindness, of careful thought, of understanding. The day ended with Jaren tending to his damaged equipment while Illyra watched from a safe distance. She was still nervous, still trembling at the thought of being near a human, but she felt a strange sense of connection. For the first time, she began to question what she had been taught. Maybe humans were not only dangerous, they could also be allies, even friends. Night fell over Leora, painting the forest in shades of deep green and gold. Illyra lay in her small sleeping nook, thinking about the human who had entered her world. Fear still lingered, but curiosity had grown stronger. She wondered if she could ever approach him again, if she could learn more about these strange beings who seemed so different yet so capable of care. As she drifted off to sleep, Illyra did not know that her life was about to change forever. The human Jaren would challenge everything she believed about her world, about humans, and about herself. And though she trembled at the thought of what lay ahead, a tiny spark of hope had begun to glow in her heart, a hope that perhaps fear could one day give way to something entirely new. And so, the first chapter of their story ended with the soft rustle of leaves and the quiet hum of the night, a world on the brink of discovery, and a young alien girl beginning to see the possibility of trust, understanding, and the unlikeliest of connections. The next morning, Illyra awoke with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The memory of the previous day's encounter with the human lingered in her mind, making her heart race. She knew she had seen something extraordinary in him, a kindness that she had never witnessed before among the stories and lessons her elders had given her. Yet the idea of approaching him still made her tremble. She felt a strange tension, a pull between fear and curiosity that she could not easily explain. The forest around her was alive with morning light. Tiny luminescent insects drifted like sparkling dust through the air, and the soft rustle of leaves was accompanied by the calls of unseen creatures. Illyra moved silently, her senses alert. She had made a decision. She needed to understand this human, to see for herself whether he truly was as unusual as he seemed. She kept her distance as she approached the area where Jaren had stayed overnight. The wrecked pieces of his ship still smoldered lightly, tiny sparks rising from twisted metal. Jaren himself was there, examining the remains, carefully cataloging every piece as though it were precious. Illyra watched quietly, hiding behind a cluster of ferns, her heart pounding. Jaren looked up at the sound of rustling leaves and tilted his head. "Hello?" he called softly, his voice calm and steady. "I know someone's there." Illyra froze. The sound of her presence being noticed was both terrifying and thrilling. Her instincts screamed for her to run, yet a small, braver part of her urged her to stay. Slowly, she stepped into view, keeping a cautious distance. Jaren's eyes widened slightly, but he did not move toward her aggressively. Instead, he raised a hand, palm open. "It's okay," he said. "I won't hurt you." Illyra hesitated, trembling slightly. I am Illyra," she said, her voice soft. "I watched you yesterday. You helped the creatures." Jaren smiled faintly. "Yes," he said. "I try to help where I can. And I remember someone saving me from that rock yesterday. That was very brave." Illyra's tail curled nervously. She had not expected him to remember or praise her. Her people rarely acknowledged each other in such a personal way. She nodded quietly. I wanted to see humans closely, to understand." Jaren's eyes softened. "I understand," he said. "I have never met someone like you before either. You're very careful, very aware of everything around you. That's important." For a long moment, they simply observed each other. Illyra noticed how Jaren's expression held no malice, only curiosity and patience. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling that both frightened and fascinated her. Her fear of humans had not vanished, but it was shifting, being replaced by something new. Over the next several hours, Illyra watched Jaren work to repair the damaged ship. He moved with precision and care, using both his human strength and a gentle touch to handle delicate parts. She realized that humans were not only physically capable, but also thoughtful and inventive. Every action he took seemed deliberate, yet full of consideration for the life around him. Elira felt drawn to him, though she could not yet explain why. She wanted to help, but she feared interfering. She tried to imitate his movements from a distance, practicing careful handling of small plants and objects. She noticed that even in his mistakes he remained patient and corrected them without frustration. The alien girl realized that humans had a quality her people rarely expressed openly: persistence combined with kindness. As the sun rose higher, the forest around them became busier. Animals ventured out of their hiding places, chirping and calling to one another. Elira saw that Jaren moved through them with respect, avoiding harm and speaking softly when necessary. She felt a pang of admiration. If humans could be this thoughtful, then perhaps they were not the unpredictable dangers she had been taught to fear. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the forest. Elira's instincts immediately went on high alert. A nearby cliffside had loosened during the night, and rocks tumbled down toward the ship and Jaren. Without thinking, Elira leapt forward, using her speed to push him out of harm's way again. This time he barely had time to react, but he caught her gaze as she landed safely beside him. "You're incredible," Jaren said, still catching his breath. "I don't know how to thank you enough." Elira blushed slightly, a new emotion stirring within her. She had acted instinctively, not for reward, but because she felt a need to protect him. Her fear of humans had not disappeared, but it had begun to mix with respect, and something that might be the beginnings of trust. "Don't thank me," she murmured. I just, her words faltered. She realized she had no clear way to explain her feelings, and so she fell silent. Jaren nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. "I understand," he said softly. "Sometimes actions speak louder than words." For the first time, Elira allowed herself to step closer to him, though still carefully. She noticed the way he moved naturally, with confidence but never arrogance. There was a rhythm to his presence, a sense of balance that drew her in. She realized that humans could be trusted if approached carefully, and that their strength was not only in physical ability, but also in understanding and empathy. The next days passed in a delicate dance of observation and cautious interaction. Elira began to communicate with Jaren more openly, using gestures, drawings, and eventually simple words. She showed him the plants and creatures of her world, explaining their uses and behaviors. Jaren listened attentively, asking questions, never dismissing her knowledge. Elira began to feel a sense of connection she had never known, as if understanding and curiosity were building a bridge between them. One afternoon, they encountered a creature trapped in a pitfall, struggling to escape. Elira instinctively moved to help, but Jaren placed a hand on her shoulder gently. "Let's work together," he said. "We can do this safely without risking ourselves." Together they freed the creature, combining Elira's agility and intuition with Jaren's tools and careful planning. The animal looked at them for a moment, then scampered off into the forest. Elira felt a rush of satisfaction. They had accomplished something together, something that neither could have done alone. She realized that humans could be partners, not just strangers or threats. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elira and Jaren sat quietly near the wreckage of the ship. The forest was bathed in soft golden light, the air filled with the gentle hum of life. Elira reflected on the days that had passed, on the human who had entered her world, and on the emotions she was beginning to feel. Fear still lingered, but it was no longer the only emotion. Curiosity, respect, and even a tentative sense of trust had begun to grow. Jaren looked at her with a soft smile. "You've taught me a lot too, Elira," he said. "About your world, your people, and even about myself." Elira blinked, surprised. "I taught you?" "Yes," he said. "Sometimes humans think they are the teachers, but I've learned that understanding comes from listening and observing." "You've shown me that?" Elira felt warmth spread through her. She had never thought that a human could see her as someone worth learning from, someone important. Her fear of him, while still present, was now mixed with admiration. She realized that humans were not only strong and curious, but also capable of forming connections that transcended species. As night fell, Elira returned to her sleeping nook, her mind buzzing with thoughts. She could not deny it any longer. Her feelings toward Jaren were changing. The human who had entered her world, who had shown patience, kindness, and understanding, was no longer just a subject of curiosity. He had become someone she wanted to know better, someone she could imagine trusting. She knew that fear was still a part of her. It would not vanish completely overnight. But Elira also knew that curiosity and understanding could overcome fear if approached carefully, and for the first time, she allowed herself to hope that her world and her life might be richer for having a human like Jaren in it. That night, the stars shone brightly over Leora, each one a reminder of the vast universe and the possibilities it held. Elira drifted to sleep with a quiet determination. She would learn more, understand more, and perhaps, one day, the fear she felt at the thought of a human mate could transform into something entirely new, something she was only beginning to imagine. The days that followed felt different to Elira. Her fear of the human Jaren was still there, lurking like a shadow at the edges of her mind, but it was no longer overwhelming. Instead, it had softened, giving way to curiosity, trust, and a budding sense of admiration. She found herself seeking his presence more often, watching him work and sometimes joining him in small ways, though always cautiously. One morning, the forest felt tense. The usual hum of life was quieter than usual, and even the luminescent insects seemed to hover nervously in the air. Elira's senses tingled. Something was not right. She spotted Jaren walking toward the edge of a nearby cliff, examining the terrain for a safe path back to the remains of his ship. She followed silently, her instincts alert. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed from deeper within the forest. Elira froze. The sound was unfamiliar but carried with it a clear message of danger. She watched as shadows moved quickly among the trees, figures taller and broader than any creature she had seen in this part of Leora. They were unfamiliar aliens, not from her colony, and their movements were aggressive. Jaren noticed the approaching figures and immediately took a defensive stance. "Elira," he called softly, "we need to be careful." "Stay behind me." Elira's heart raced. The fear she had felt for humans was nothing compared to the fear of this new threat. Yet strangely, she did not hesitate. She nodded, keeping close, her body ready to move with him. The aliens emerged from the trees, their eyes sharp, scanning their surroundings. Elira's first instinct was to flee, but she noticed something in Jaren's demeanor. He was calm, precise, and observant. He did not attack. He assessed, calculated, and prepared. Elira realized that this was the difference she had been noticing all along. Humans had a way of handling danger that was both careful and bold. Using hand signals and gestures, Jaren communicated with Elira, directing her to safe spots among the trees and rocks. They moved together, silently, with an unspoken rhythm that allowed them to avoid detection for a while. Elira felt a surge of confidence. She was not alone. The human beside her was resourceful and thoughtful, and she could rely on him. Despite their careful movements, the aliens eventually spotted them. A sudden chase began, with Elira using her agility to navigate through dense trees while Jaren used his tools to create small obstacles, slowing their pursuers. Elira had never felt such fear and adrenaline at the same time, but she also felt a strange exhilaration. She was learning, adapting, and surviving alongside a human. Finally, they reached a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. The rushing water provided cover, masking their scent and sound. They ducked inside, breathing heavily. Elira's heart still raced, but she felt a new emotion rising, trust. She had never relied on anyone like this before, and yet she felt safer beside Jaren than she had in all her life. "We're safe for now," Jaren said softly, giving her a reassuring look. "But we need to plan our next move." Elira nodded. I can help," she said. "I know paths, secret ways through the forest." Jaren smiled faintly. "Then let's combine our knowledge. Together, we can find a safe way back to your colony and warn them." Over the next hours, they worked together to map out a path, using Elira's knowledge of hidden trails and Jaren's ability to assess danger and create small traps. They shared ideas, tested solutions, and learned from each other. Elira began to see humans in a new light, not just as strangers, but as partners, capable of forming bonds built on understanding and cooperation. As night fell, they set up a small camp in a hidden grove. Elira watched Jaren carefully, noting the way he moved around their temporary shelter. He built a small protective barrier using natural materials, careful not to harm the forest. Elira was impressed. Humans were strong, yes, but their strength was not only physical. It was in their patience, their careful thinking, and their respect for life. They sat together in the dim glow of the bioluminescent plants, Elira felt a strange nervousness as she realized how close they were. Her tail twitched slightly, and she found herself studying Jaren's face more than the forest. He noticed her gaze and smiled softly, a smile that was neither intrusive nor overwhelming but gentle and understanding. "You've grown braver," he said quietly. "I can see it." Elira hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I had to," she admitted. "The others? The aliens, they are dangerous," Jaren nodded. "Yes, but bravery isn't about not feeling fear. It's about facing it and moving forward anyway. And you've done that." Her chest warmed at his words. Fear still lingered, but now it was accompanied by something new. Courage. She realized that humans could inspire bravery, not just in themselves but in others as well. Over the next few days, Elira and Jaren continued their journey toward her colony, using every skill they had learned from each other. They encountered minor obstacles, fallen trees, rough terrain, and the occasional wild creature, but they faced them together. Elira began to understand that fear could be managed, even tamed, when someone you trusted was by your side. During one particular encounter, a young creature became trapped in a thorned bush. Elira instinctively moved to help, but Jaren gently stopped her. "Wait," he said. "We can do this safely if we work together." Using his tools and her agility, they freed the creature without harm. Elira felt a deep satisfaction. They had accomplished something together, something she could not have done alone. Her admiration for the human grew, and she realized that her initial fear of him had begun to transform into respect, and perhaps something even stronger. That evening, as they rested beside a calm stream, Elira looked at Jaren and noticed the way his eyes reflected the stars above. It was a small, quiet moment, but it spoke volumes. She had begun to see humans not as strangers to be feared, but as beings capable of trust, patience, and understanding. And Jaren in particular had shown her that even in a dangerous world, bonds could be formed that made fear smaller and courage larger. Elira found herself speaking more freely now, sharing details about her colony, the plants and creatures, and even her own thoughts and dreams. Jaren listened attentively, asking questions and showing genuine interest. Elira had never experienced such focused attention from another being, and it made her feel valued and understood. As night deepened, Elira felt herself relaxing more than she had in years. The forest was alive with gentle sounds, and the stars above twinkled in a way that seemed almost magical. She realized that her fear of humans, while still present, was no longer a cage. It had been transformed step by step into something she could navigate, and most importantly, she realized that her feelings toward Jaren were changing. He was no longer just a human, a stranger, or a curiosity. He had become a companion, someone who could be trusted, someone who inspired bravery, and someone who had begun to touch her heart in ways she did not fully understand. As she drifted into sleep that night, Elira felt a quiet determination. She would continue to learn, to understand, and to grow. Fear was no longer her guide. It was curiosity, courage, and trust that led her now. And though the journey was far from over, she knew that together she and Jaren could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the quiet of the forest, beneath the watchful eyes of the stars, a bond was forming. It was a bond built on understanding, patience, and the slow transformation of fear into something new. A bond that could change both their worlds forever. The journey back to Elira's colony was not easy, but it was different from anything she had experienced before. With Jaren by her side, every challenge became manageable. She noticed how his calm presence gave her courage, how his careful thinking and steady hands turned danger into opportunity. Fear still existed, of course, but it had transformed into something she could face. She was learning that trust and understanding could overpower even the deepest anxieties. The forest had grown denser, and the terrain more challenging. A narrow ravine blocked their path with only a thin, unstable bridge spanning the gap. Elira approached cautiously, her tail coiling nervously around her feet. It's dangerous," she said softly. "It could break." Jaren examined the bridge carefully, testing each plank before stepping. "We can do this," he said, his voice calm. "Just follow my steps and stay steady." Elira hesitated for a moment, but then she saw the trust in his eyes. She took a deep breath, letting go of the lingering fear, and stepped onto the bridge. With each careful step, her confidence grew. She realized that humans were not reckless. They measured risk, They planned and they acted with both courage and thought. The bridge swayed slightly under their weight, but they crossed safely. Elira felt a thrill of triumph. She had faced fear and moved forward, guided by trust in someone who had proven himself worthy. When they reached the other side, Elira paused to catch her breath. She looked at Jaren and saw him smiling faintly, a silent acknowledgement of their shared success. That small gesture filled her with warmth. For the first time, she realized that humans could inspire not only trust but also a sense of companionship that went beyond mere survival. As they neared the colony, Elira's heart began to beat faster. She knew the elders would be wary of Jaren, just as they had always warned her about humans, yet she felt a quiet determination. She had learned to see humans not as threats but as allies, capable of kindness, patience, and understanding. She was ready to face whatever judgment awaited them. The colony emerged from the trees, its structures blending harmoniously with the forest. Elira's people paused as they saw her approaching, a human beside her. The elder's eyes narrowed and whispers spread quickly through the crowd. Elira's stomach tightened, but she did not step back. She felt a new strength, one born from shared experiences, trust, and courage. Jaren walked beside her calmly, not intimidated by the scrutiny. He nodded respectfully to the elders, acknowledging their authority without fear. Elira noticed how his presence radiated patience and understanding. He was not imposing himself. He was showing respect, a quality her people rarely expected from outsiders. The elders approached Elira, their expressions stern. "Who is this human?" one asked. "Why is he with you?" Elira took a deep breath. "This is Jaren," she said clearly. "He is a human, yes, but he has helped me and our world. He has shown patience, care, and understanding. He is not a threat." The elders exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Elira continued, her voice steady despite the tension. "I was afraid at first, as you warned me to be, but I have learned that fear is not always the truth. Humans are capable of kindness, of bravery, and of trust. I trust him, and I know he can help us." Jaren stepped forward slightly, speaking with humility. "I mean no harm," he said. "I have come from a distant world, but my goal is to learn and to help. I respect your people and your home." There was a long silence as the elders studied him. Elira held her breath, feeling the weight of their scrutiny. Finally, the eldest spoke. "We will watch you closely, human," he said. "But your actions will prove your intentions." Elira felt a surge of relief. She looked at Jaren and smiled faintly. Trust had been established, but it was only the beginning. Over the following days, Elira and Jaren worked together to strengthen the colony's defenses and improve its resources. They combined alien intuition with human ingenuity, creating systems that were safer, more efficient, and respectful of the environment. Elira watched as her people began to see the value in the human's presence. They noticed his patience with creatures, his careful handling of delicate plants, and his willingness to listen to every suggestion. Elira's admiration grew each day. She realized that humans were not only capable of strength but also of understanding, patience, and empathy. Jaren had shown her that fear could be transformed into respect, trust, and even something deeper, connection. One evening, as the sun set over the forest, Elira and Jaren walked along a quiet path near the edge of the colony. The sky was painted in shades of gold and purple, and the air was warm and fragrant. Elira felt a sense of peace she had never known. "Elira," Jaren said softly, "I want to thank you for trusting me. You've taught me so much about your world, and about myself." Elira looked at him, her tail curling slightly with nervous excitement. I was afraid at first," she admitted. "Humans, I didn't understand them." "I didn't understand you," Jaren smiled gently. "And now?" "Now?" Elira hesitated, searching for the right words. "Now I see. Humans can be kind, brave, understanding, and I trust you." Jaren reached out, placing a hand gently near hers. Elira did not pull away. Instead, she felt warmth and reassurance in his touch, a quiet affirmation that her trust was not misplaced. The bond between them had grown, formed through shared challenges, understanding, and patience. Elira realized that her fear of having a human mate, something that had once made her tremble, had transformed into something entirely different. It was no longer fear. It was connection, respect, and the beginning of something she could only describe as love. The colony had accepted Jaren cautiously, but Elira knew that trust, once given, could grow stronger with time. She felt proud of herself for facing her fear, for observing, learning, and choosing to trust someone from a world so different from her own. That night, under the glow of Leora's twin moons, Alira and Jaren sat together by a small stream. The water reflected the shimmering lights of the forest, creating a peaceful and magical atmosphere. Alira felt her heart calm, her thoughts quieted by the gentle presence of the human beside her. "You've changed my world," she said softly, "not just by helping, but by showing me that fear isn't everything." Jaren nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And you've changed mine," he replied. "You've shown me patience, understanding, and a way to see this world through eyes I never had." For the first time, Alira allowed herself to feel completely at ease. She no longer trembled at the thought of humans or of having a human mate. She had seen the good, the kindness, and the courage that could exist even in beings from another world, and she had experienced it firsthand with Jaren. The forest around them was alive with gentle sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of creatures, and the soft hum of the night. Alira realized that fear had been replaced by hope, trust, and a sense of connection that stretched beyond the boundaries of species. As the first light of dawn touched the treetops, Alira looked at Jaren and smiled. She felt a quiet certainty in her heart that humans and aliens, despite their differences, could form bonds that were strong, meaningful, and transformative. Fear had once defined her understanding of humans, but now it had been replaced by something far greater. In that moment, Alira understood the true meaning of courage and love, not the absence of fear, but the ability to face it, learn from it, and allow trust to grow. And in the quiet beauty of Leora, beneath the glow of the rising sun, she realized that her life had changed forever. Jaren reached out and took her hand gently. Alira did not hesitate. The bond between them was no longer defined by uncertainty or fear. It was defined by understanding, respect, and the quiet, steady beginnings of love. And so the story of Alira and Jaren came full circle. The alien girl who once trembled at the thought of a human mate had discovered courage, trust, and connection. Fear had given way to understanding, and understanding had grown into a bond that would shape both their worlds for the better. The forest of Leora whispered around them, alive with life and possibility, as two beings from different worlds stood together, ready to face whatever the future held. And Alira knew deep in her heart that love had changed her fear forever.